Hello and welcome. I'm Sharon Waldrop. I have both personal and professional expertise managing fibromyalgia. My co-host Ginevra is sending out some fibro love. Today we're doing something we've never done here on the show before. So often I get asked by the people in the community, I just wish my loved ones better understood fibromyalgia. And so that's what we're talking about today. We have a couple who has been living with fibromyalgia together for quite a while. And so we're excited to ask them about their 37 years of marriage and how they're navigating fibromyalgia together.
Today's guests are Dave and Chris Coverly. Dave is the creator of the internationally syndicated comic panel Speed Bump, which appears in newspapers and websites around the world, including the Washington Post and LA Times. Dave recently partnered with the Fibromyalgia Association to create a special Speed Bump cartoon inspired by Chris's experience living with fibromyalgia. The cartoon also highlights an important reality. It can take years for valuable health information to reach the people who need it most. Dave used his talent and platform to help start that conversation, and we're so grateful he said yes.
But today isn't just about the cartoon. It's about what it looks like to build a life in a marriage when chronic illness is a part of the story. So Chris and Dave, welcome to the Fibro Show.
Hello.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Before we jump into questions too, I wanted to share a little fun challenge that we're doing. So we would love to find out if you see Speed Bump in the publication that you enjoy, if you would be willing to share that with us. Look in your publications coming out June 16th. And if you spot it, we'd love you to drop in the comments below the name of the publication and the city or province and the state and country. And we can see how far this message goes around the world. If you'd like, you can also send me a snapshot of it at contact@managefibro.org, and I'll drop that email address into the show notes. As a little thank you, we thought we'd gamify it a little bit, and we're going to draw a random winner who can get one of the t-shirts, features a cartoon on the back of it, and you can start your own conversation around town. So again, welcome. And I thought we could start things at the beginning. Chris, can you tell me a little bit about when fibromyalgia entered your life and how it became a part of your family and, the two of you, that journey?
Yes, well, that was 32 years ago, and just really out of the blue had a neuroma, like a blood clot that burst. And from that, there was just a little bit of pain, but from that came pain throughout my body and headache. So this was a tough year, 35 years ago. It was just the very beginning. There wasn't the internet. You couldn't go on the computer and look up information. Doctors didn't know about it. I was fortunate to get a doctor that, kind of knew what was going on and could help. But it's rough. It's been, a long time. But fortunately, I have this guy here who has been with me every step of the way. Sometimes bad, sometimes good. So we just take it one day at a time, really.
Yeah. I mean, because as you know, Sharon, every day is different.
Yeah.
Every day is different for Chris. I think she doesn't really know what she's going to feel like when she wakes up every day or how it might change in the middle of the day. And I obviously don't know that either. And so like we were talking about earlier, I think for us, communicating is just is so essential just because things can change and you don't want to assume something about somebody like, oh, Chris is she's having a good day. So well, let me suggest that we go do this or whatever, because I work at home. I mean, we're able to do that. We're able to stay in touch, but check in constantly during the day. I think that's helpful. I mean, I think it's helpful to both of us, just knowing I'm not off someplace for 8 hours. I'm home, expecting to, to have some fun conversation, go out to the movies or whatever. We already know how we're going to be. And then you just, from there, you just life is just a constant series of adjustments. I mean, I think that's true for everybody, but especially when you have a an invisible illness like this. To me, it's like, that's my job, is to keep up with those adjustments.
Yes, fibromyalgia it is unpredictable. Sometimes I think, oh, I did a lot today. Uh-oh, tomorrow maybe, I may be sore or tired, and try to plan out those weeks ahead. But, we also raised 2 children in that with careers. I don't work anymore. Dave works. So we've been fortunate that way.
Oh, I was just going to say, before we started recording here, you mentioned that you got fibromyalgia right when you gave birth to your first child. What was that like? All of that happening at once.
Yes, yes. I was pregnant and had a full-time job. Dave had just been syndicated with Creator Syndicate to have his cartoons sent throughout the United States. So it's very exciting. A new baby. But then every day I woke up with extreme pain and tired. Not just I had a baby tired, just, overwhelming kind of tired.
Okay.
And that was very, very difficult. We did end up moving from Indiana back to Michigan to be a little bit closer to our parents, for our children.
Mhm.
We have another daughter.
And I bet that helped with having some support. I would imagine raising
Yes.
2 young children at the same time.
Yes, yes. Very much so.
It was a kind of support that wasn't just, I mean, we live an hour and a half away from them. So it wasn't like they were babysitting all the time, or like that kind of support. But
Okay.
but they were accessible. Like, I mean, they weren't 6 hours away anymore. They were an hour and a half. So they could be there, almost immediately. So it just, even mentally, it was really important to know that we could do that. That it made, nothing would go so wrong that we'd be like in real trouble. And plus, we just wanted our kids to know their grandparents. I mean, besides the fibromyalgia, it was just that we wanted them to have that relationship.
That's
So,
really cool.
Yeah, and I had to go from a full-time job to a part-time job.
Okay. That's still really impressive with fibro to have part-time and raise two small kids. That's a
Yeah.
lot of energy. Were you getting support at the time medically? Did the medical community understand, and were you diagnosed, or?
Well, my general practitioner actually said at the time, she said, I think you have fibromyalgia. It's the garbage dump of, you've heard that before back then. Many doctors would say that, well, you have fibromyalgia, and did put me on a medication quite early. And so I was fortunate that way. And fortunate to had some good doctors.
I'm
And have
glad to hear
access to
that.
them.
And Dave, what was that like watching her go through all of this?
I mean, I would say there's a 2-part answer to that. Like, the obvious answer is it was hell, because, it's just, you're watching somebody you love in pain. And so and it's not like you can't do anything about it. It's like you don't even know what to do about it. Chris and I were talking about this yesterday too. It's just that when you're the spouse, you're always a step behind, no matter what. So no matter what she was going through, I was always kind of catching up. Like she would tell me, and then I'd be like, oh, okay. But it was never like, well, I think this is what's going to happen, so let me help you in this way. You're always, like, the spouse is always reacting instead of being proactive, especially early days, I would say. Like, I think now we've talked so much that I kind of, like, she'll do something and I'll say, like, maybe don't do quite so much or whatever. Because Chris is, like, naturally high energy and sharp as anything. So she wants to do stuff. Like, she wants to be who she was, and which I completely understand. And I love that person. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, you're going to be flat on your back all weekend if you do that one extra thing.
I overdo it.
Yeah. So to me, it's been this real learning curve. She's taught me, and then you just learn from watching. But I think, and you learn just from being there and paying attention, like we said earlier, and Chris is great about, especially now, like in early days, she wasn't great about this, and it's not judgmental things. Like, she didn't know either, but about telling me, you know what I mean? Like, she had things she wanted to do that she didn't express to me how badly she was feeling. So I didn't know, but now she's great. I mean, she'll tell me, if she's feeling bad, if she's feeling,
I sure do.
like, what, Whatever pain level is, I know what it is. But I find that's extremely helpful. I mean, I think we make a much stronger team
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. But from the very beginning, Dave believed me. I think that there are still doctors out there, healthcare workers, family members, friends that don't believe that this is real because, we can sit here, and do our hair and,
Right.
so they think, oh, you look great. You look normal. But I was very fortunate. Dave believed me. He accepted it. My mother and my father especially my mother was a great, great support,
Yep. Yeah, she
always on the phone with me.
was totally in immediately.
Yeah. So I was fortunate that way too.
Absolutely. Yeah. To have that belief is so important, as well as the actual support of it, but not to be fighting disbelief when it sounds like you yourself have also experienced that, as you say, from healthcare workers and many other friends and other family. And so I'm curious how, pacing, as we call it, when we're like learning to like, okay, Dave's saying like, oh, Chris, don't overdo. I know you'll be flat on your back for a while. So that's like kind of an example of pacing where you want to kind of just take your time with activities and figure out if you're overdoing so you don't do too much. Is it helpful to you, Chris? Are you more successful do you feel like you're more successful because Dave is there reminding you about some of that? Or is it?
Yes. No, definitely.
It's
Definitely.
annoying as hell.
Yeah. I mean, it does. And then I'll say, well, I want to do just this one thing after this one thing, and then, I'll be done. But see, now I lost it. There goes the vibraphone.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we both do it though. So like when I say things like that, like if she comes back and says, I want to do more thing, I believe her. I don't say like, no, you're not allowed to do it. I mean, like, she has her own agency and she's an autonomous human being in the world. So we just talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a organized person. My job professionally was a lot of multitasking. So fortunately, from the very beginning, Dave and I have always compared calendars, sort of like, what are we doing, this weekend or next week? And now, as 37 years or, 32 years of living with fibromyalgia, our grown daughters, our family, they know that, there are certain things I can do and certain things I can't. So we look at the calendar and I have to put those things on the calendar. And even making dinner, like what is for dinner that is planned a week ahead, are we going to get takeout this night? Even what night can we cut all those vegetables or can we do something the night before? So it definitely helps to look ahead, even looking ahead the month, making sure that the weeks aren't packed in there. I do have a problem with daily things because I like to physically, it's hard for me to let something just sit on the floor and me not picking it up. And I know I shouldn't.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Fortunately, he doesn't have a problem with that.
You're my organized.
Yeah.
It sounds like at least at times you are successful at pacing. So what is your motivation or what helps you to decide, no, you know what, I better listen to myself or perhaps even listen to Dave and not do that one extra thing?
Oh, years of learning. Also, I wasn't very good at it, but I have to say, I didn't. Even when the internet was available and there were chats and things about fibromyalgia and things, I didn't seek that information. And that was really something I should have done. And I didn't do it. And that was really only about 3 years ago, that I really sort of jumped in and decided to look at everything I could look at with fibro and finding out that other people do what I do. I just didn't know. I didn't know anyone with fibromyalgia. I didn't know anyone with pain. So many people didn't know I had pain. Or they'd say, oh, okay. And you kind of tell them, and then it's never brought up again for years and years and years. They just don't get it. That I bring a cushion with me to sit on or a pillow to put on my back. But I think that that's probably
Yeah, I mean, and
fine.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's the point of pacing is like, yeah, it's not a daily thing. The pacing is almost a lifetime thing. Like you plan out everything because, like well, in anybody's life, in your life too, like there are certain things you just want to get done and you can't do them all at once. Even if you're 100% healthy, you can't do everything at once. So you plan it out. But with fibro, it's like, okay, Chris will say like, maybe there's something that's going to take it out of her. It's like, so she'll rest for a couple of days before that, do that thing, and then rest for a couple of days after that. And I'm sure that's not uncommon with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that took me a while to understand too. That's those habits were not overnight habits.
Mm.
That was the kind of thing that's like, okay, now I got to do this. Oh, now I got to do that. And then you're kind of like, oh, and then when the beauty of it though, is like when it works, she has great days because she took care of herself before and after. And that's worth it. I mean, maybe a couple of down days, but then maybe, she got to do something really fun, or like the girls would come home for a few days or whatever, and we can do some things. You realize there's a balance in life. And for Chris with the fibro, the balance is a different balance. She just adjusts to that new balance.
And there were always sort of mom activities I can do with my daughters. And, I may be able to go shopping with them because I could sit down in certain places. And Dave would do the very active athletic types of activities. So they learned very early on. I mean, from birth, this is the way it was. And it's also helpful that Dave, it's important for the spouse to have a life or activities socially and maybe outside of a couple. So that, you play tennis, you have friends that cartoonists, he Zooms from around the world. He has things that he does. And when our daughters come and they go do things, Dave's going to Greece coming up in October with my daughter, our daughter. Our daughter.
I've met her, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something I can't do. And they're going to go hiking and 2 weeks of a lot of activities.
I think the important point talking about our girls is that the silver lining of all of this is that we have probably two of the most empathetic human being daughters that you can imagine. I mean, they grew up with a mom who has pain. And so they don't know anything. To them, like what Chris has isn't like, oh, that's abnormal. This is like people get things like this. That people have things like, they got crap they got to deal with and can be really serious. And so they've taken that out into their lives in other ways. And so, it's not fun for them, but they are huge-hearted people. Our younger daughter works for a charity,
Women's charity.
Women's charity. Yeah. Our older daughter is an artist whose art reflects women's problems, and the issues they deal with. We all drive each other crazy sometimes because we're all kind of a quirky little family, but we're also extraordinarily proud of them. And I think that, part of that is just growing up with this. And I wouldn't recommend it, but I certainly think that's a silver lining, the way they've turned out.
How did you handle that with your kids, as a group from being a baby into, the toddler years and, as they keep developing, like, how did you explain it to them, help them navigate it? Because I'm sure they sound like amazing humans. And I know exactly what you mean as far as when the kids grow up and this is their norm. It is their norm. I mean, my boys are the same way. I had it, before they were born. We had this McDonald's drive-through that was like this toy that they could play with. And my kids used it as like a CVS and it was pharmacy.
That's hilarious.
It's so good. CVS drive-through.
Yes.
I was just like, I was kind of horrified, but then it was funny. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Your kids are like, wait, your game is where you drive through a drive-through and pick up drugs? Like that's
Yeah.
That's,
that's actually really beautiful.
Yeah. Did you I mean, when they were young, it was just, oh, I can't do that. I have, and I wouldn't say fibromyalgia. I'd say, oh, yeah, dad can do all that physical stuff, but, no, I can't lift that. That's dad's.
Yeah,
Mom had rest time since they were born
you get pain. I
in
mean,
the afternoon.
you can call it fibro, but I think
No,
maybe chronic pain.
until later,
pain.
later on.
Yeah. And, and
Tired or
yeah, it's not, I mean, they're great. They're great adults. It wasn't like that they never pushed back though when they were young. I mean, because they were kids, and it's like, there were times when they were
and they felt bad.
teens or whatever, and they understood intellectually, but there were times where they didn't understand emotionally.
Yeah.
And they'd want to do something and it couldn't be done or whatever, or they want mom to go, and it just wasn't happening. So they'd be upset about it maybe, but not a lasting upset, just a sort of frustration. Like I think sometimes
Yeah,
they felt
frustrated.
They felt some real frustration, but that's absolutely normal too.
Yes.
I mean,
People deal with all kinds of things.
yeah, kids are frustrated. Their parents who are completely healthy, so it's just a different kind.
Yeah, and I meet, young mothers all the time, and they, boy, moms are so good at putting guilt on themselves, and dads too. Yeah. So, but that is,
I'm guilty of that.
you're guilty of mom guilt. But yeah, I try so hard to tell them that it does really all work out. Like you're saying with your girls and my boys, that it can be hard in the moment, but yeah, it has a way of working out. One of my strategies was I would always feel bad when I have to cancel plans. So a lot of stuff we began telling them about. So it'd be hilarious where we're doing something really big, like, I don't know, going to Cedar Point for the day or something. And it's surprise, we're going in like an hour. And so instead of letting them down, everything was just like this big surprise.
Yeah. That is good.
It's a good strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one little tip that I have for you young moms.
That's a very good tip for parents.
Yeah, because then there's a win-win. Because then, then they're so excited. It's like even more exciting because it's a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Chris, what has Dave done for you over the years that has really helped you feel supported beyond some of the things we're talking about?
Yeah. Like I said before, he believed me right away. Talked freely about it. I don't know if he had a choice about that. I'm a quite talkative person, and so he was going to hear it no matter what. Fortunately, I did marry somebody who was a very relaxed person. So I'm the one that's not relaxed person. But he was always there he would say, if you can't do that, I'll take them. Or if we were doing something, do you need to go back? Or I'd say, I can't go anymore, guys. Dad's gonna continue. And I mean, even at a big mall we went to a couple hours away, and with my daughter, and we went shopping, and it was, okay, I'm done. Dave continued shopping with our young teen daughter, and I was laying on, seriously, this is what I do. I was laying on a blanket in the parking lot on the green space. There's always these little green spaces where people park, and I found a tree, and because I told them, park near a tree because it's sunny today. And so, he went another 2 hours.
And we found some good stuff.
And then we go home, or we have dinner where I can just hang out, or I may say, let's get takeout. Or I'll say, so the girl, so here, let's get takeout. So he can kind of talk up, let's get takeout. So it's not always me. It's not always on me to say that I can't do something. I would tell Dave, and sometimes, because then the burden wasn't always on me.
Right.
It always wasn't because mom can't.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes he would take that over and manage the day, or say,
Put a positive spin on it.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
You're a more positive person.
Well, I mean, just that even just for the kids' sake, then you're making it into a pleasant thing, and then that way there's no frustration with mom.
Yeah.
about something like that. I mean, because I feel like when you are the spouse or a partner with somebody who has this, and like probably any invisible illness, but this in particular, it's like you want to be proactive and you want to help them directly. But I feel like more as we've gone along, like the most helpful things have been more indirect. Like if I can do something that gives Chris time and space to take care of herself, like I have to stop telling myself to take care of her because she knows what she needs and she knows what she wants. What she sometimes just needs is just like time and space. Like you know when you need to rest or what you need to do or what you need to make sure you don't do.
I've had enough.
You've had enough, right? So I make sure that like I do the other stuff if that would be like it's almost more helpful to do other things and leave her alone. If then it sounds kind of weird, but there are times where that's just like probably the best thing.
Yeah, but I don't know. You tell me. Have you ever held that against me? Kind of at the beginning?
No,
You're not that type of person.
No.
So that's what's been very helpful. Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't hold it against me, even from the beginning, that, oh, I can't make dinner. Dinner's not happening.
well, why would anybody think that? That's
What do
the
we,
thing is like, it's,
what else? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so you figure
Eggs? Scrambled eggs?
you had a lot of scrambled eggs. The caveat is, the explanation behind all that is that I suck in the kitchen. Like I'm horrible. Yeah, I enjoy when I know what I'm doing a little bit, but there's no way I was stepping in and like keeping up the same level of competence in the kitchen that Chris is capable of. Chris is great cook, great baking, but
The last
Yeah.
couple years, especially.
I'm trying. She's the brains and I'm the hands in the kitchen. She tells me how to stir it or when to put it in, when to take it out. So we sort of figured out.
Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it's not.
But
Well, it
it's the-
sounds like that teamwork has been really important. And Dave, I think you made an excellent point about sometimes it's not necessarily doing anything specific for her except to give her that time and space. And then, Chris, you were saying that back to him where you recognize he needs time and space to do activities like that you can't do with him and how important that is.
yeah,
Definitely.
she's been great. She's great about that. I think every couple's, that anybody who gets along and loves each other, like you're always sort of aware of the other person and then like what they maybe what they feel like doing, what they don't feel like doing. And so, it's for my mental health, like I play tennis every other day. It's only an hour, but it's a great workout. I see my friend, I look forward to it. And then I feel better about myself for a little bit. I played tennis in college, so I kind of have to have that. It's like a hobby, but it's also my workout and it's also my mental, break. And so I've never heard one bit of complaint from
Never.
Chris about anything like I do like that. We spend a lot of time.
We do. We always have. And,
Yeah.
that's,
No, we're good. I think that's actually the bottom line of all of this is that one of the reasons maybe that we're handling it
I'm lucky.
because no, I'm lucky. I mean, so we have this like, we're friends, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
besides being married and loving each other, we're friends. And so we like, sometimes I see people and their partners are like talking to each other sort of rudely or whatever. And I think I wouldn't even talk like that to a stranger. Like, why are you talking to somebody you supposedly love like that? And so we tried to stay like aware of that, especially because I'm at home all day, is that just basic manners and politeness is important. I mean, it's kind of stuff that,
Because when you have pain and you're tired,
Yeah.
Things can come, that tone in your voice, and I do it quite easily, as everybody knows me know. But yeah, I can be very, sharp with it or
correct.
direct, a little too direct,
But it's not because we know where it's
I
coming
have-
from.
Yeah. It's not
Just
me.
that your brain's maybe at that capacity where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just say whatever's coming out and you don't
Yeah.
necessarily mean it. I mean, you may mean it, but it's like not maybe the way you would do it if you had more battery in reserve, so to speak.
Yeah. And I don't think I've ever talked negative to you about it, such as, why don't you do this for me or
Oh, right.
anything?
No.
Because
No.
they will drive me anywhere Like
Mhm.
really, any doctor's appointment, if it's 3 hours away, fine. He says yes. He just
Mhm.
says yes. Or whatever it is, we'll figure it out if that's what you want to do. If you think it might help you, then he says yes.
That's
Let's work it out. Let's figure it out. Oh, yeah, one daughter has this that weekend. Make it the next weekend, or I'll be out of town giving a presentation at this university or whatever. And,
Mm.
so not that weekend. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and like those are the easy things to do and to say yes to, though, for both of us, because there's so many hard things about this. Like, like there's so much nuance, there's so much trickiness to an invisible illness that is sometimes almost impossible to navigate well. Anything that's practical, anything that can be done, that's helpful, that's just like driving someplace or just doing something that you know how to do. Like we don't even really talk about it because that's like, okay, that just makes both of our lives easier anyway. And that gives you more sort of space to feel maybe some negative thoughts about the illness.
yeah.
I mean, because it's not all positive. It's like, it sucks.
Yeah. It's depressing,
The whole thing sucks and it's depressing. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to allow space for that to complain. So if you can do something proactive that's positive, that's actually not a burden. It's like, I hate to say, it's like almost like a relief. Like, oh, you can at least do something.
There's something that you can actually do in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it was like an added benefit that you do work from home? Because I'm curious, like you were just talking about, it's difficult to understand something that's invisible. Do you think because you're like kind of day in, day out alongside of her, that understanding was easier? Or do you feel like that's not important? It was just how it would have happened anyways.
I think that actually might be one of the most crucial things that has happened that has been a positive. I feel like I wouldn't understand it nearly as much because we don't interact every second all day or anything. I mean,
Sure.
doing all that stuff, but I know what she's up to all day, not in a weird way. So I understand what her day looks like. If I was gone for 8 hours, she could tell me, but seeing something in action, hearing about it are two completely different things. So I see how she takes care of herself. I see what she needs to do. I'm around to if Chris ever needs something, like anything big happened or whatever, but there's not that much of that. It's just more like, how does Chris handle her day? And knowing that is extremely helpful to me because then I know, like we were talking about the pacing, like I know how she paces herself during the day.
Mhm.
If I didn't know that, I would come home and not really understand how tired she was that day. Or, I mean, there are days where she has to lie down most of the day because it's a really bad day, a flare or something. And then there are a lot of days where that's not the case, but she takes it easy. So when I'm done working, I kind of know what her day has been like.
Mm.
And I can
Well-
sort of adjust accordingly.
Well, having a flexible schedule that he did, even when I worked part-time, sometimes, during the day, it used to be when they were younger and living at home, they would come home from school. I would pick them up, bring them home. And if that day one had to be somewhere and the other one had to be somewhere else, then we could do it. And then after they went to bed or later on in the evening, Dave would come back up. This is his attic studio up here in our old house. He would come back up here and work. So he was a little bit more flexible with that.
Mhm.
And I'm a morning person, so I actually do well in the morning. So mornings were always my
Yeah.
kind of like I can handle. But, having children and then at home and all their activities and their needs and wants is so different than having them out of the house.
Oh, I'm sure.
It
And,
really
yes, I
is.
can relate. Yeah. Mine are still, I'm like halfway in between. They're in college, so, I
Yeah.
don't see them.
It's
But living here.
different energy level that, I mean, it's a fun energy level when they're here, but it also
It's a lot of stress.
takes energy out of you too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, even just emotional energy.
Yes.
For sure. And Dave, if someone came up to you and said, boy, my wife was just diagnosed and I just don't understand this. Like, what do you have tips or words that you think would be helpful for somebody else to hear?
For one thing, don't just listen to the person that you're with, your wife or your spouse or whatever. I mean, that's the first thing is you have to listen to them, but don't just listen to them. Chris will pass things off for me to read that she's read, or now, I come across something occasionally. There's the double-edged sword of the evil algorithm on the internet is that now I get all kinds of fibro stuff that's, handed to me, but I like it because, it's a lot of I know, or I don't understand because I'm not that bright. But every once in a while I'll come across something and I'd be like, oh, Chris was kind of talking about this or this, and so I'll just forward that or I'll read it and then people who are with somebody that's new to them, the best thing you can do is avail yourself of any kind of information you can get your hands on. It won't all be pertinent to your situation, but there'll be some stuff in there and it's worth slogging through extra stuff to find it, because it's not just that then you'll know it and I don't think you'll ever understand it 100%. Like, I don't think I could read about this we both could read about this the rest of our lives and not understand, doctors don't even understand all of it, but even understanding a little bit, even the understanding, all it does is bring more empathy. And I think that's the bottom line for all this is just like, if you just can access your empathy and lean on that and think like, okay, what if she feels this way, then what if I did this? And if that's not right, then what if I did that? You're asking yourself those questions. But it's just a matter of learning, and it doesn't happen overnight, right?
Yeah. We're learning things all the time. But Dave has been very good about that. I mean, I have friends and family members who have never entered fibromyalgia in Google, so
Mhm.
fortunately, my family has been good, but they don't know.
Yep.
And they're not curious, I guess,
It's just, I think
and I just let that go.
people don't like not understanding things, they don't want to be frustrated by it or,
Negative.
yeah, I mean, because some of these people are very, very caring people in general. It's just like people we know who are very smart that are, whoever. Sometimes you think, man, it's just going over their heads. And there's not like an expectation of anybody doing a deep dive.
Right.
It's just like,
Right.
ask a question,
Yeah.
or whatever. But then it's like, that's not really a thing we can focus on too much either. Cause it's like, then you don't want to go down that negative. There are enough negatives with this illness that just adding, sort of voluntarily to that list is not helpful.
Absolutely. Was there ever a strategy, Chris, that you used though to help somebody better understand it? Like, was there a time where you were successful where you're like, hey, I shared this article, and then they're like, oh wow, that really helps.
Well, I mean, since my parents, now are elderly, I had probably at the time printed some things out for
Mhm.
my parents. My dad's never been on the computer, so, printing it out definitely helped. But no,
Well, we do have some friends. There've been a few of my friends.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. A few of my friends have been great about it.
Yeah.
It's always, it's always hit and miss. And to be honest, like, I don't think we sit around like telling everybody all the time.
No.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Might just say chronic pain and then Chris can't do it. I've got some friends that they truly are empathetic about it. Like, they don't know what to do about it. One of my friends, there was that documentary about the chronic pain on Netflix. I can't remember what it's called. But he watched it 3 times. He was just
Wow.
really, I don't know, it was a bummer. So he, some everybody just has different reactions to it. And I think if you start getting into the expectations game, then that's kind of a bummer. You learn who to tell.
Yeah. It's too frustrating sometimes. And so I just have to let that go. If I bring something up like, oh, I have fibromyalgia and it's this, this, and this. Yeah, I've had it a long time. This was probably 8 years ago. I would talk to somebody, a friend. And then if they don't ask more about it, then I just, that friend is like that. There's some friends that I can say a little bit more to, family members, and some I can't.
Yeah, and that
I just let it go. You have to let some things go.
For sure. You can only control so much. I think you guys are just a lovely example of what a strong marriage, a strong relationship can look like, where I could tell how tuned in to one another you are. And you said right off the bat that that was how you're getting through this, is to really
Yeah.
see one another and see what's happening.
Yes.
And then Chris, you said though that it wasn't until like maybe more recently that you did start reading and learning. And I'm curious like what those resources are or were and how they may have helped you.
Well, I didn't, like I said, go on the internet looking for information. Um, I just thought I'm just going to live my life. I was on a medication and it was doable at that time. But, I'm somebody with fibromyalgia that's gotten worse. So as the years go by and at my age, it just seems to get worse a little bit. So then I had to sort of say, okay, wait. And I started listening to some people on the internet like you and listening to other people who have it and other fibromyalgia podcasts and just thinking to myself, oh, somebody was in bed all day, rested all day. Somebody did that. I thought, I can do that too if I want. I never have because I just have this thing inside me that I have to be productive. That's unfortunately. So it sort of gave me agency, or it gave me the okay that
Permission, yeah.
a little permission, yeah, that, oh, I can do that for myself. Oh, other people do that. Oh, okay. I was just, I was learning. Like I said, I didn't know anybody with fibromyalgia.
And just from our conversations too, I think Chris was sort of reticent to dive too deeply into it just because there's that aspect of like, then you're talking about it a lot. And then it's like, then you're thinking about it more. And then you hear somebody else's sad story and then you're sad. And so just from what you told me, like it didn't feel like it would be helpful at that time.
I tried to ignore it.
Like, yeah, like it could be a negative.
Yeah.
But then I think what happens, like not just with you, but like most people when it turns into a positive is that you check something out and you realize that there was something positive in that you took from it. Not everything is going to be positive about it. And you're going to get a lot of information that you don't need. Doesn't really pertain to you, but just even picking up a couple things here and there, Chris will listen to you and to listen to other things and then tell me all about it. And so I heard a couple things, but then later she'll say something about it and then something later. So there's a lot of stuff goes in there that just sort of percolates. And this seems like it also leads to nice conversations for us, because then she can tell me some of the things that she heard about.
Yeah.
And I've obviously never heard about. So then I can ask her about that, and just kind of, you can branch off and it's not the same conversation as it always was.
It really, really helped to hear other people through your organization and others, to hear what people were doing day to day. I mean, yes, I like to know how they handle it with medication or rest or supplements or whatever it might be, but that I actually heard somebody say, oh, yes, I have to, you have to think about this, think about your body and what is happening. Listen to your body. Would that be a good thing? And you have to do that, really keep on it throughout the day. And I didn't do that. I put it behind me, and I think I made a lot of misery for myself and probably other people.
Mostly for yourself.
Mostly for myself.
Yeah. You just got more self-aware though.
I did. I got more self-aware by learning from other people. Really.
That's amazing. And yeah, for me, the education has been the critical piece, which is why I started the Fibromyalgia Association, because much like you, I was diagnosed about almost 31 years ago. So similar time frame. And there was not the information then. So I traveled across the country to Oregon to go to a conference to learn about it. And once I had more information, it was like I could cope with it so much better. One of the driving forces to the work that I do at the Fibromyalgia Association, the work we're doing here with Dr. Ginevra at the Fibro Show, is that we are seeing research is showing that it can take up to 17 years for research to go from the researcher to you and your doctor. And I know I shared that as an idea because Chris is a member of our support and education group, and she was telling me about her very talented husband. And somehow we got the conversation going around like, hey, I wonder if he'd ever do a comic for us. So what inspired you, Dave, to pick that topic about the 17-year gap between research and making it
Yeah, I mean,
to you
it
and
was
Chris?
interesting. It was interesting because like when I do cartoons, and you were so incredibly helpful with this because when I'm doing my own cartoons and I'm trying to think of an idea, there are two parts to it that lead to a third part. And the first part is just coming up with a subject matter, like what's it going to be about? And then I try and think of like a different angle and then try and put those things together for a third thing altogether. You handed me some information, just being like helpful. Here's what we're focusing on for the awareness. Here's one aspect of it. The 17 years, it takes 17 years. And to me, that was like, oh, that's kind of gold because now the cartoon is about something already. Like, so I'm like halfway there. And so because I've done probably 12,000 cartoons in my life, I've done a few cartoons about pain charts. And so just percolating one night, told me about how long it took. I was like, man, that's ridiculous. That's insane. That's frustrating. That's painful. I'm like, oh, painful. So then you got the idea for this cartoon because fibromyalgia is about pain. And so then the cartoon came together very fast because it just touches on something that everybody's experienced, going to the doctor with something frustrating going on. In this case, it's specifically fibromyalgia. So I think trying to make the cartoon about fibromyalgia in about 17 years, but also making it general enough that like enough people will understand that they can see themselves in the doctor with, if it's not fibromyalgia, it's whatever they have. And then the pain chart, Chris and I were just talking about this too, is like, that's a frustrating thing unto itself. I mean, I know people use them and I'm sure that they've got their use, but one person's 3 is another person's 7. And I don't know how helpful those things are specifically. Maybe they're vaguely helpful, but they're also frustrating. And so when you got the fibromyalgia frustration, then you go to the doctor, and then you got this added frustration of somebody who's trying to help you by giving you something so vague that it actually does the opposite. I thought in the cartoon, okay, there's a couple layers to the cartoon. And now we've got something. So then after that, it was just easy to draw it. That's what I do.
What'd you think of it, Chris, when you saw it?
Oh, well, how long did it take him to come up with the idea? I mean, 5 minutes? I mean, his brain is so tuned into taking those ideas and bringing them to life in a quirky, humorous way. And no, I loved it. And I especially loved how fast he got the idea. I really, I do.
That was a little lucky.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was sort of like, we were communicating about it, us 3, and I think I let you know pretty soon after we talked about it.
Yeah,
He already had one.
Yeah. I think part of that was helpful though, is that you guys are both in the conversation. So like I came up with the idea at the breakfast table, basically, because you had mentioned it. And then Chris and I talked a little bit, but she's a sounding board. I don't always use Chris as a sounding board for my work just because I kind of like to live and die in my own sort. If I bounce too many things off somebody else and then it's not mine anymore or whatever. But in this case, like this is Chris's life. And so it was really helpful to have Chris there. So if I could show her my idea and find out whether it was, make sure it wasn't insensitive. I wanted to make sure that somebody in her shoes would read that and not be like, oh, that's a real mean cartoon, or that's not really what we're trying to say.
Does it?
Ever. Like, yeah. So it was great because she said that it worked.
Oh,
So then I knew it worked because I don't have fibromyalgia. I live with it, but I don't have it. And so if something was offensive, I might not understand it was offensive, and she would. So I felt confident sending it along to you at least because of that.
Yeah, no, it was great. And that you really did, like you say, have a couple different layers going on there. I think it's a shocker for many people to hear that in 17 years. I knew it was a long time, but when I actually saw research that showed, no, it's about 17 years for any research to make it, it's like, wow, well, that's really unfortunate, and that's what I've been finding in the last 30 years doing my work at both the Fibromyalgia Association and as a board certified health coach, that there's so much that we know how to live better with the illness and people aren't getting that information. So that's why the show's here. And I'm glad that, you found the information to help you live better with it. And so we're super excited to hear from all of you watching. If you see this on June 16th in a publication near you, please drop it in the show notes. What publication and where you saw it, state, city, country would be great. We know we have people tuning in from all over. Chris, what's your final thoughts to somebody that you would want them to know about living with fibromyalgia and navigating it with your loved ones?
Don't doubt yourself. Be true to yourself and advocate about it, but talk about it. The other thing was, I'm fortunate to have had pretty good doctors. Some people don't, and I would love to tell everyone, do not accept that. Just say, oh, I don't think you're the doctor for me. I think I need something else, because that's unacceptable. And my heart goes out to people that don't have access to a healthcare professional who believes them and helps them or tries to help.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. So again, there's that support word that you have at home and you found in the medical community. How about for you, Dave? What words of wisdom might you have for other people like you who are living with somebody, but even if it's, someone like Chris out there, what are your thoughts as someone who is not living with it, but you are living with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things basically is that you remind yourself that you love this person when you're living with somebody that has something like this, that everything you need to do has to come from a place of love. And so, it's not always going to be perfect and you're not always going to get it right, but think like, well, what's the nice thing to do right here? How can I help? Ask yourself all the time. Now, 'cause I would say, don't ask this out loud all the time, because that's really annoying, but ask yourself all the time, how can I help? What can I do? Because I don't think, and I'm sure this is true for Chris or anybody, is like, nobody wants to be asked over and over, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? Can I do that? Like, people want to do things for themselves when they can. Chris will ask me if she needs help. So I try not to pester her as much as I can, but I pester myself. And I think that's helpful. I try and do that, like, just in general with life, but specifically with Chris. It's like, okay, when you think about how you can help, you actually eventually stop thinking about how you can help. And that just becomes how you think. The things that you tell yourself to do are what become your habits. And so that the habit of trying to help, it's not 24/7. Like, you can't help all the time. You got to do your own thing sometimes. And I think, to me, that's the most important part of living with somebody is that. But also the second thing is to, like, show yourself some grace. This isn't a complaint, but it's not easy sometimes. It's not because Chris makes it hard. It's because the fibromyalgia makes it hard. It makes your life different than maybe what you had thought. Chris and we had talked about traveling and stuff together, and that's not a thing we can do. So don't get hung up on that. Like, you're still allowed to think like, oh, I would like to do this, or I would like to do that. That you don't have to beat yourself up because you didn't get every single thing right. So I think that's actually helped me a little bit sometimes, where I, like, it's like with anything, like, if you think and you trust that you're trying your best, that's all you can do. Like, that's how I treat my work. Like, I try and come up with a good cartoon. Sometimes I don't. And I think, well, I tried, otherwise, what are you going to do? Like, then you're in a negative mindset all the time if you're doing that. So I think it's just helpful internally just to be like, okay, what's the nice thing to do? and then you just end up doing it. And one other thing I really wanted to add too was that the cartoon won't be in everybody's paper. They can see it online. If you go to gocomics.com, then everybody can see it there. It doesn't run in their paper. Because I'm really hopeful, because I have this platform, that we can get the word out as much as possible. It runs in the Washington Post and Los Angeles Times, and so those are big readerships. I'm sure they have fibromyalgia organizations in DC and LA, and I'm hoping that they get shared there. Because I feel like with an invisible illness, and then this is one of the reasons I really wanted to put it into Speed Bump, because you and I talked about just doing it for the awareness. And I thought, no, I've got this platform. And so the one thing about having an invisible illness is that you're not seen, and I felt like this is an opportunity for people to be seen. So if somebody's struggling with fibromyalgia or any kind of chronic pain, and they see the cartoon, they'd be like, oh, somebody's talking about it. At least that.
At least that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's enough just to feel seen. So hopefully if people see it here, they're watching this, please, by all means, share it. Like, this is the whole point of it, is for people to see it. So if you want to print it out, if you want to drop me an email, I'll send you a high res file of it. You can print it out, whatever. I mean, just share it with as many people as you can, because you never know who's going to see it and what it could trigger. Like I've had that happen with many of my cartoons with other subjects. They end up in unexpected places. So the more people that share this, the more opportunities there will be for this to be seen by the right person. Who knows? I mean, not like I'm expecting a doctor to see it and say, like, gosh darn it, we're going to reduce this 17 years down to 7 years. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But there can be some positives that come out of it that we don't even know what they are yet.
100%. No, and I can't thank you enough for using your talent, your platform. As you said, like, you were thinking, well, let's do this for Awareness Day. And then you got the idea of, no, you know what? This could actually be in my syndicated comic. And so I agree with you. You never know where this could be seen. I think printing it out's a great idea for those of you who have talked to us and, said, gosh, I can't get anybody to read information on this, loved ones in my life. That's the perfect thing to print out. Take the magnet, throw it up on your refrigerator, wherever. Like, look, this is being talked about in different places. And I think sometimes, what I love about this, we were talking a little bit before the recording, just what humor can bring to a serious subject, I think can be so important. And so I love the spin you put on it and the recognition around the pain chart and how a lot of us, dread that question. Go in, you captured that frustration. Well, I have so enjoyed getting to know both of you a little bit on this interview, and kudos to you guys on everything that you've figured out on this journey, because it's not an easy journey. And I appreciate you both being so willing to share what it's for you. And I hope that for those of you watching this, that hearing some of their stories might be helpful to you or a loved one. By all means, this is a great video to share with a significant other and say, hey, this is how another family is coping with this. So you're not in this alone. You can check out managefibro.org. We have the support and education group there, and Awareness Day, and so much more. For resources, Dr. Ginevra's book, The Fibro Manual, has been very helpful, and it's now out on Audible. So that's in the show description too, as well as everything else we've talked about today. So until our next episode, we're sending some fibro love out to all of you, and have a great day, everybody.